good marine navigation chart for the coast of Cornwall, you will see that some of the areas are littered with wrecks. There are wrecks inshore and wrecks offshore. The majority of those wrecks are of course out of reach for the kayak angler, however, some wrecks are accessible. One of those wrecks is very accessible to the kayak angler, and that is the wreck of the steamship Stanwood, which lies here in the Fal Estuary. In 1939, the Stanwood was in the port of Falmouth for repairs when its cargo of coal caught fire. They decided to tow the Stanwood out to the North Bank buoy. The North Bank buoy is there to guide the ships away from the shallow North Bank, keeping them in the much deeper water of the main channel that runs through the estuary. The buoy sits close to the edge of the bank in about 30 feet of water. The idea was to moor the Stanwood on the buoy in the shallow water and open up the sea cocks to flood the ship and put out the fire. Unfortunately, the ship flipped over on its side and slid down the bank into the deeper water of the main channel, about 60 to 70 to 80 feet. They were unable to refloat the ship, but managed to salvage most of the cargo. Later the ship was blown up, so it wasn't a danger to shipping, blown up with dynamite and most of the contents removed, and it now sits fragmented. Divers' reports say there are some metal sheets and girders that sit about 3 metres above the seabed. The wreck is silted and life has taken over with weed growth. From a fishing point of view, at certain times of year the wreck holds shoals of pollock. Unlike some of the offshore wrecks, the majority of the pollock are small, although like any rough ground mark there is bound to be the odd larger fish. There are also some conger eels and wrasse. Although the pollock are small, on light tackle they can offer some great sport. This video is about fishing the Stanwood wreck for those pollock on light tackle, just for a bit of sport. First, let's take a look at the position of the Stanwood on the marine charts. Taking a look at the position of the Stanwood wreck now on the marine charts, this is the position of the North Bank buoy, and as I said earlier, the North Bank buoy is there to guide the ships away from the shallow bank here, keeping them into the deeper waters of the main channel. This is where they moored the Stanwood wreck and where it flipped over on its side and slid down the bank into the deeper water where they were unable to recover it. This is the main section of the wreck here. I've got a couple of waypoints created here for fragmented sections of the wreck. From a fishing point of view, unfortunately, it's not just a matter of positioning the kayak over the wreck or sections of the wreck and finding the fish. At times I've found them down the northern end of the wreck and right down into the shallow bank here. At other times I've found them down the southern section of the wreck. They could of course be on or around the fragmented sections of the wreck. So that's the biggest challenge, is actually finding the fish. But once you've found them, you can set up your drift to drift over that position and hopefully catch a few. So before I head out and see if I can find the fish and catch a few of these pollock, I'm just going to have a quick look at the tackle I'm going to be using. If I was out on a boat fishing one of the deep offshore wrecks where the average pollock is usually much bigger and there's chance of £10 plus pollock or even £15 plus pollock, then the traditional method of fishing for them is with what is known as a flying collar rig, which basically is a long boom coming off the main line, similar to this but longer, maybe a lead of 5 to 6 ounces depending on the strength of the tide, a long trace of about 10 to 12 feet, and something like a red gill, which has been around for years and caught an awful lot of fish using that method. Or what has become more popular now is these self-weighted lures, similar to these, where you can shorten the trace a little bit, maybe a 6 to 8 foot trace, and use a self-weighted lure. And the method is the lure is lead is lower to the bottom on the drift, and when it hits the bottom you immediately start retrieving, winding up X amount of turns depending on where the pollock are lying, and then back down again and just repeat that process until you contact a fish. Or if I was fishing one of the inshore reefs that I fish in about 40 to 50 foot of water, I would dispense of the flying collar rig and the lead weight and just fish one of these self-weighted lures that weigh between 40 and 55 grams. But the method would be the same: lower it down. When it hits the bottom, steady retrieve up X amount of turns, and then back down again until you find a fish. And on the inshore reefs, again, the fish, there's possibility of maybe 3-4 pound pollock, and the odd chance of maybe a 6-7 pound pollock. However, because I know that the average pollock on the Stanwood wreck is not very big, and when I say not very big, the minimum size limit down here in Cornwall is 30 centimetres, and I would say that the average pollock off the Stanwood wreck is going to be between 30 and, let's say, 45 centimetres, with the slight chance of a bigger fish. So what I tend to do is dispense with the usual method and scale right down, and by doing that I'm much more likely to get more sport than I would fishing one of these type of lures, although the small pollock will take big lures. Likewise, a big pollock will take a small lure. So what I tend to fish when I'm fishing for pollock on the Stanwood is these lures here. They're known as mini day glow rigs, and they remind me of a mini version of a gummy Mac, and all they are is a bit of plastic about inch and a quarter long, tied on a size 4 hook, and even though they're designed to imitate maybe shrimps or prawns, small prawns. And even though they're small lures, I have had pollock up to 4 pound on these. So even though the lure is small, doesn't mean to say you're not going to catch the bigger fish. And there's 3 of those that come off, and what can happen is with the 3 lures instead of just the single lure, sometimes you'll get more than one of these smallish pollock on at the same time. And if you get 3 35 centimetre pollock on at once, I can assure you that it's a bit of fun trying to get them up from 60 to 80 feet of water. Okay, on the end of that, instead of the conventional lead weight, what I fish is a speed jig. And 2 reasons for the speed jig: when I'm drifting over the wreck and I see the pollock start to appear on the finder, speed jig will get me down really quickly in amongst the fish. Whereas these lures, they take much longer to get down amongst the fish. The other thing is the speed jig will catch any of the larger fish that are around, not just pollock but anything else that may be down there. And also the smaller pollock will have a go at this as well. So that's what I tend to fish, because the method is slightly different. Rather than lower it down and then reeling it in, what I do is lower it down amongst the fish and then just jig these lures. And like I say, at times you can get 2 or 3 on at once, and it can be great sport. And the reel, just a little bait casting reel. Again, lovely little light reel, very sporty. It's loaded with a 20-pound braid, and the rod is just a 10 to 40 gram 8-foot bait casting rod. Right, so that's the tackle. So now got to get out there and catch some of these fish. Call it a day now. Had a good bit of sport with the small pollock on light tackle. They were all small. There was one or two slightly better fish, but majority of them were small, which that tends to be the standard for the Stanwood wreck in the river here. No doubt about it, out on the offshore wrecks and the inshore, some of the inshore reefs I fish out on the main coast produces much better quality pollock. However, for a bit of sport on light tackle, fishing the Stanwood wreck for pollock can be a lot of fun. There's always a chance of a few better quality fish, even though the majority of them are small. But had a lot of fun, and thanks for watching.